now.
Welcome to New South Wales State Archives presentation of records of divorce held as state archives. Before we begin, you need to know where things are on our website. So on our home page, you will see that there are a number of items that will help you in your research. First of all, I'll point to our quick links and you'll see that there's online indexes. There's also research A to Z. Other things to notice are our search box for collection search. We'll be talking about these in the course of our presentation. So if I say that you need to put something in the search, you can also scroll down further on our website, on our home page, and you'll see that there's a number of shortcuts to popular topics. And there you can see is the one on divorce. I would suggest that you use that. It has a nice set out of all the things relating to divorce. So if we click on that, it will then take you to this page where you will see things that may help you in your knowledge of divorce records. For example, there's what you may find in divorce files, there's the divorce records guide, and there's also a shortcut to the divorce records online index, which covers the period of time from 1873 through to 1923. You can also go to this index just by following our quick links to our online indexes. Other things that may help you that we hold the Family Law Divorce Index, published by the Supreme Court of New South Wales. It covers the period of time 1873 through to 1976. It is available on microfiche in our reading room. For divorce records in the pre-1976 period that are not held by state archives, then you will need to contact the Supreme Court of New South Wales. For divorce records after 1976, you will need to contact the Family Law Court of Australia. Keep in mind that in 1976, with the establishment of the Family Law Court of Australia, no fault divorce was introduced. So, how do we know about a divorce? Perhaps there's family stories or family whispers. You may have been looking at newspaper articles on Trove and come across a story, especially in some of the more salacious newspapers such as Truth, King's Cross Whisper. You might find some really juicy newspaper articles. You might simply have discovered the divorce by looking at State Archives' website. You may have been looking at records of a will and realized that there was a second family mentioned or other children that you didn't know about. Or you may have seen an annotation on a marriage certificate. In New South Wales, up until the end of 1983, the original marriage certificate was annotated when a marriage was dissolved. So how do we find divorce case papers? It may be indexed on State Archives websites. So don't forget, I mentioned our online index covering the period of time 1873 through to 1923. For the period of time 1921 through to 1966, you can search collection search by putting in the petitioner or the respondent's name and the word divorce. Keep in mind that while we have records for the period of time 1921 to 1966, the year 1964 has yet to be transferred. For the years 1970 and 1976, you need to check with our staff, as the names haven't been entered on our website due to privacy considerations. The Supreme Court of New South Wales is transferring divorce files on a fairly regular basis, so keep checking with our staff if you're waiting for a year that has yet to come across to us. And don't forget, you can do an overall search by searching the microfiche index to family law, covering the period of time 1873 through to 1975, 76. Okay. If you're going to our online indexes, if you use the quick link on our homepage, it will take you to this page. You will see that the online indexes are arranged A to W. If you click on D for divorce, then click on the divorce index and it will give you this. If you want to know more information about any of our indexes, go to the more about this index in red, click on that, and it will give you background details about the records that have been indexed. If you want to search the index using a particular name, click on the red box that says search the index. Okay. As you can see, you can put in the petitioner's name or the respondent's name. Sometimes you may not know which person was the one who started the divorce proceedings. If I was searching, I always just put in the surname that I'm looking for. That's all you need to do. Some people put in too many names and they get a nil result. So just put in the surname, then click the red submit button, and it will give you the result. In this case, you can see that we have two divorces in the surname of Golder. There's one in 1894 for Fanny and George Edward, and there's another one in 1915 for Joseph Golder and Gertrude. Keep in mind that you can order copies from the divorce index. You would simply tick on the box that you wanted and then proceed to the checkout. So just keep that in mind. It's also a good idea when you're looking by just searching for a family surname, you may find additional relations that you didn't know about or people that you didn't know were divorced. So if you're interested in them, you can certainly follow it up. Okay. If you're searching in the period after 1923, then you use the collection box search on our website. So you simply put in one of the parties' names and the word divorce. So all divorce case papers have the word divorce. When I'm looking for someone, I always try to put in the most unusual name. So in this case, I was looking for a divorce of a Mary and Reginald Bray. I thought Reginald Bray was probably the most unusual name, so I used that. So I typed in Reginald Bray, followed by the word divorce. You then click on our search button, if you can see that there in red with a Q for a question. Click on that and it will take you to the results. As you can see, there may be a number of entries that you may be interested in. If you see the name and you think, oh, is this my person or is it not my person? Keep in mind, it does give you the date range so that you know what you're looking for and who it is. So we wanted Reginald and Mary Bray. So there we can see it there. It's 636 of the year 1927. This tells us here the date range of the divorce case papers that are contained in that particular file. So it covers the period of time from May of 1927 through to February of 1929. So when you see the one that you want, click on it and then it will take you to this next page where you can see that there is the copy service if you would like to order a copy. to be posted to you, and the form will come up. Or if you're visiting our reading room, you may like to press on the pre-order button to pre-order it so that it will be waiting for you. I would also like to point out, if you are wondering what the other person's name there, who doesn't appear to be a Bray, Agnes Stewart, she is the co-respondent. So do keep that in mind in case you're going the other way and you're looking for someone who may have been a co-respondent in a divorce case. But in this case, we know that they're the divorce case papers of Mary Elizabeth Bray and Reginald Alfred Bray, and the co-respondent was Agnes Stewart. Okay, here's another example of a different set of divorce case papers, this time for George Bellingham Roberts and Isabel Marie Roberts. We've noted in that there is a photo, and photos are a bonus. Sometimes they may only be quite small and they may not have been noted. In this case, it was quite a large, beautiful studio photo, and I'll show you that later on. Also take note that it says it incorporates an earlier one. So keep in mind the number for this one, for George Roberts and Isabel Roberts being divorced, is 509 of 1936. But there appears to be an earlier one in 1935. So they may have applied earlier, it didn't go forward, and then they applied again. Sometimes people decide to have another go at it or whatever else. Okay, if you click on the copy order form, then you go to that form, or you go to the pre-order form if you're pre-ordering the records. The information down here is already filled in, so you don't have to write it yourself. You can simply put in your details, your name, surname, telephone number, and most importantly of all, the date of your visit. If you are pre-ordering records, it means you're committing to that particular day. If you're not sure what day you're coming next week, then leave it until closer to the time when you can commit to a particular day. If you can't come on that day, please let us know that you'll be coming the next day. Otherwise, it'll simply be returned to where they're stored. Okay, but the copy service form, if you're going to order copies, you scroll down further. Once again, you can see that the information about the divorce is already filled out, so you only need to put in your details and proceed to the checkout and pay for a copy. So let's look at some definitions. When we hear about the decree nisi, what does that mean? That's the initial conditional grant of divorce. Decree absolute is the final grant of divorce. If the court found grounds for a divorce, a decree nisi was granted. If the decree nisi was not rescinded or appealed, the decree became absolute after 3 to 6 months. But this will be stated on the records within the file. Okay. The first act to allow divorce in New South Wales was passed as the Matrimonial Causes Act in 1873. Initially, only men could petition solely on the grounds of adultery. Do keep in mind that prior to 1873, the only way it was possible to be divorced in New South Wales was to bring a private member's bill in Parliament. So for the average person, that really would have been out of reach. So some people would simply separate and maybe just have bigamous marriages or just start off a new life. Alternatively, they may have been divorced elsewhere other than New South Wales. Okay, there were amendments to the Act, and there you can see a number of amendments. So things like in 1881, wives were granted the right to divorce husbands solely on the grounds of divorce. And so over time, there were various amendments to the Act. Until 1976, the Family Law Act replaced the Matrimonial Causes Act and established the Family Law Court of Australia and the process of no-fault divorce. And the Family Law Court of Australia is a federal court, so the states no longer handled divorce. So what's in a divorce file? The papers contain evidence for each particular case, including judicial separation. So keep in mind, some people, maybe due to religious reasons, don't want to be divorced, but they do want to judicial separation. So judicial separations are included in our records. Examples of the documents that you may find in the case papers, and keep in mind that they do vary from case to case, may include petitions for the dissolution of marriage. There may be affidavits, which are sworn statements due to various matters concerned with the case. There may be petitions for maintenance or for alimony or for child custody. There may be marriage certificates. There may be decrees nisi, but they're not always included, and the decree absolute, once again, not always included, and of course, correspondence. Okay, so let's have a look at some of these records. This is a petition for the dissolution of marriage, and this is for Reginald and Mary Bray. Here, it also included their marriage certificate. And in the days prior to photocopiers, you sometimes see some beautiful marriage certificates from around the world. In this case, Reginald and Mary Bray were married by the British consul. How exotic is that? He was a master mariner and she was a nursing sister in the Australian Imperial Forces. Okay, this is just a standard marriage certificate. This is in another divorce case for Bush versus Bush, and that's probably more the certificate that most people would be acquainted with. Keep in mind the marriage certificates were generally presented because before a divorce can take place, you have to, of course, establish that a marriage had taken place in the first instance. Okay, there may be correspondence, and do read the correspondence. Some of it is quite fascinating. In Mary and Reginald Bray's divorce case papers, there were a number of letters written to dear Mary from Reg. And basically, he explains to her that he no longer can make a go of it with her, that he's found another woman who he truly loves, who is his helpmate. He also talks about their child, James, who he always refers to as Jim Lad. And you have a wonderful feeling of getting to know him as you read his letters. Okay. This is what a decree nisi may look like. This is once again in the case of Bray versus Bray. And this is the initial grant of divorce. It's not the decree absolute. And here we have the decree absolute when it's finally granted and they are finally divorced. I wanted to show you this. We mentioned the Goulders earlier when we were looking in the online indexes to divorce. The Goulders did not want a document as showing that a judicial separation has been granted. They're always a bonus. Handsome Reginald Bray, the master mariner. Here is just a small photo that was in the divorce case papers for Violet and Oliver Penfold, and the photograph was included as it was to show that the divorce case papers had been served on this particular individual as he was away in the army training camp for the Australian Imperial Forces. And here is the beautiful studio photo that I mentioned of George and Isabella Roberts. You can see they were a very glamorous couple, very much into society. George had come out here originally as the secretary to Earl Beecham, and so they were very much in the newspapers of the time. Okay, so some related records. Aside from the divorce case papers, where else can you look for some information? There may be court reporting office transcripts. There may be judges' notebooks. For other sources, go to Research A to Z and go to D for divorce, or look at the records listed in Archives in Brief number 77 if you have the hard copy of that. But the information is all given in the divorce guide in the A to Z section of the research. Newspapers of the time might also give you some information. So, for example, here are some articles found on Trove for the Roberts divorce case. So remember how I said they were a society couple? Under the heading Divorce Court, you see Society Case. And of course, everyone would have been following them as they were in the social pages, and probably they would have been quite well known. Of interest, I'd point out to you the appeal to the Vatican. So it says that Isabel is going to apply to the Vatican to annul her marriage. Keep in mind, we do not have records of annulments. Only the churches can grant annulments to the marriage. Divorce is a civil matter done through the courts, whereas annulments are done through the churches. Okay. Now, I just wanted to show you another example. When you look for a divorce, when you do the collection search, you will see in this case, when I searched for Gertrude Pickett divorce, a couple of items came up, and they're for exactly the same people. So you can see Albert Horace Pickett, he's bringing the petition for divorce in this instance from Gertrude Florence Pickett. That's in 1927 through to 1928. That did not go through. It was simply a separation, and then a number of years later, Gertrude became the petitioner in the divorce, and the second time that did go through was in 1936 through to 1937. So do keep in mind, sometimes you will see that there might be 2 or even 3 goes at getting the divorce. Okay, so court reporting transcripts. Court reporting transcripts record exactly what someone says in the court. It's a great source to hear the voices from the past, exactly how they expressed themselves at the time. Unfortunately, they do not exist for all cases, as there was only a limited number of court reporters, or only part of the trial may be recorded, as the reporter may have been pulled to go off to a more important case. Court reporting transcripts start about 1908, but they don't become really regular until the 1920s. Up until the 1920s, they are arranged by the judge's name, then the jurisdiction, in this case divorce, and then the particular year that the matter is heard, not the year of the application, which is the year that you will have seen in the divorce case papers. After which time, they're arranged by the year and the jurisdiction. So if you were looking at item listings in our reading room, in this case for 1936, you will see that there's the various jurisdiction, causes, criminal, district court, divorce. So in divorce, you would look for the alphabetical sequence of the surname of the people whose divorce you were interested in. In this case, we're looking at the Pickett's divorce. So we see that it's 6/1878. And there you can see the divorce court reporting transcript. So I'll just read you a little bit of it if you're interested. We were married in New Zealand. My husband was born in New Plymouth, New Zealand. He came to New South Wales when my daughter was 6 months old. She is now 13 years old. He came to New South Wales about 13 years ago. When he came here, he told me he wanted to live here permanently. His Honour, the judge, says, "He brought you and your daughter with him?" She answers, "No, we came over after. I lived with my husband up until 1927, and then there was a separation." So that was the first divorce case that we saw listed. There may also be other people may give evidence, not just the people involved. There can be witnesses, people who may be neighbours, who have known the couple, who give their version of events. Okay, judges' notebooks. Judges' notebooks are exactly that. Some take copious notes, others simply make jottings or note things down that they've found of particular interest. They are arranged by the judge's name and then by the jurisdiction. So where do I find the judge's name? You'll often see it in the divorce case papers or elsewhere, as you'll see coram and then the name. Coram is Latin for in the presence of or before. So in this case, you can see coram, Boyce, J. So it's Justice Boyce. It's heard in the presence of. You may also see it just stamped on divorce case papers, wherever you see coram, and then the name, in this case, Coram Pike, so it's Justice Pike. Keep in mind that judges of the Supreme Court are known as Justice. So if you were looking for a particular judge, if you know their name, you would just go to collection search and you'd put in their name. For example, Justice Dyer. Then you would see all the various records that we hold for that particular judge. And once again, you can see that they're arranged by jurisdiction. For example, the full court, in chambers, criminal causes. He sat on a royal commission, but what we want are the notebooks for divorce. So in our reading room, you would then go to our item listings and you would look it up and break it down to the period of time when your particular people were being divorced and see what he has to say in his notes. Okay, as you can see, Justice Dwyer in 1948 really writes very little. You can see the name of the particular case, and it's really just little jottings. Some justices make more copious notes, and there you can see for Justice Walker, he takes a few more notes. This is for an early period of time, but keep in mind, as you can see, judges' notes are often very difficult to read. So oftentimes you just have to persevere with it and try to work out what the notes are about. Okay, perhaps the divorce did not take place in New South Wales. If that's the case, check other states, other colonies, or even overseas. And maybe a divorce did not take place at all. Perhaps someone simply deserted, and you might find some information in the police gazettes. And lastly, you might find that they've been charged and tried for bigamy, and do keep in mind that we have court and jail records. So if you were looking in the police gazettes, this is the sort of thing that you may find, that people are looking for people who have deserted their family, and so they'll be listed in the police gazette. So do keep that in mind, that not everyone goes through the formal process of divorce. Some people may simply disappear, change their name, and you'll never hear from them ever again. So if you'd like to visit our reading room, we're at 161 O'Connell Street, Kingswood, and Kingswood is near Penrith in Western Sydney.